Coming to paperback and e-readers, Isis Legacy. The sorority secrets from the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new Isis series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Isis Legacy on Amazon.com today. One of my viewers wanted to know my thoughts on the sexual revolution and its effects on society. Now, this is a subject I go in depth on in several of my books, including Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, The Man Crisis, and the upcoming book, The Woman Crisis. And in The Woman Crisis, I go extremely in depth on how the sexual revolution affected American society. Now, the sexual revolution came about in the late 1960s and 1970s because of the rise of the feminist movement. Now, the feminist movement was one where women wanted to be able to have choices over what type of man they got involved with as related to sex and how they had sexual relations with those men. And that is the core of the sexual revolution, because before feminism, women did not have much choice as related to what kind of man they got involved with and how they could have sexual relations with that man. Because before feminism, all relations with a daughter were done through a father. Usually the father was the one who chose who got involved with his daughter, and usually he did this through a vetting process. Now, the father did this vetting process because he wanted to protect his daughter from a series of male predators that were out there, because at the time there were these male predators such as cads, womanizers, fortune hunters, and whoremongers out there, and many of these men basically wanted to use a woman for sex, or he wanted to use a woman to get money and a place to stay. So many fathers, wanting to protect their daughters from these predators, insisted that these men come to meet with him and sit down and have dinner with him. Now, sitting down and having dinner with the father said something about a man's character, because if that man could go face to face with that father, it would show that he had good character. Moreover, as he sat down with the father, he had to show that he was out here having a job, he had a place to stay, and he had a way to take care of his daughter if he chose to marry that daughter. That's what he had to show in order to qualify to have a relationship with a daughter, and he had to meet certain standards as related to his character. But many daughters out here who got indoctrinated into feminism, they wanted to have choices over the man that they got involved with, because they thought they could choose a better man than the vetting process as related to a father. Now, these women, what they wanted to do is go out here and get involved with men based on how they felt about him, and they didn't really understand the importance of how the vetting process worked. Now, most fathers knew that their daughters were emotional, and because their daughters were emotional, they would get emotionally attached to a man without checking out his social status or his ability to make a living. So that's why there was a vetting process. But your feminists, what they wanted to do was be able to choose the man they got involved with, because they thought that if they chose a man, they could get a better husband. And they also thought that if they chose when they could have sex with that man, they would have a better relationship with that man. However, because your females are emotional, when they started to choose the men that they got involved with without a vetting process, they oftentimes wound up getting involved with a lot of the male predators. And as a result of your feminists going out here and choosing their own men and telling women to choose their own men, what actually happened was all of the quality men who were working to build homes and be husbands, these men were pushed to the back, and many of the cads, womanizers, and whoremongers were pushed to the forefront as related to who a woman would choose first. Now, many of those women wound up choosing the cads, womanizers, whoremongers, and fortune hunters, and what they call your pookies first, because many of these men made a woman feel good, and because these men made a woman feel good, this is why she went out here and chose this man over the quality man. Now, the quality man, many women did not want to choose that man because that man, as a steward of God, he had standards for how he would be in a relationship, and he had standards for the woman he got involved with. And because of those standards that he had, many women did not want to get involved with him because he was requiring that they take responsibility in the relationship, whereas the cads, the womanizers, the whoremongers, and the other assorted males, they did not have any sort of standard. And because they didn't have any sort of standard, and they stimulated the woman's emotions and made her feel good, this is what led to her choosing that man over the man who could be a husband, a protector, and a provider. And as these women got involved with these cads, womanizers, and whoremongers, and these men told her what she wanted to hear and made her feel good, she went out here looking to try to secure the relationship through a covert contract. And they oftentimes tried to secure that relationship through the covert contract of sex, and that's part of what led to the sexual revolution here in America, because many Americans were curious about sex. So a lot of these young women, because they were not able to have sex on their own without a marriage, they were out here looking to have that sexual pleasure outside of marriage, because Madison Avenue in Hollywood told them that this would be an ideal and optimal relationship, because they did not have to be married in order to have that sexual relationship. Now, again, before feminism, sex outside of marriage was frowned on, and having a sexual relationship outside of marriage, this could tarnish a girl's reputation and lead to her not being seen as a respectable woman. But a feminist wanted to be seen as a respectable woman regardless of her sexual reputation, and she wanted to be seen, as somebody that could be seen as valuable just for being a woman, not understanding that a woman's sexual relations show something about her character, and that is why many people frowned upon sexual relations outside of marriage, because it said that if this woman could not really control her chastity, then she would go out here and not be somebody you could trust. That's where this term loose lips sink ships comes from, because those loose lips wind up sinking everything a man has built. So your feminists, they wanted to go out here and be able to choose whoever they wanted to have sex with. They wanted to choose what type of man they got involved with. And this led to a major revolution, because again, all courtships before were controlled by the father. The vetting process was controlled by the father. The father had to give his blessing for the man to court his daughter, and she had to choose, and the man had to choose within 6 months to a year whether or not he wanted to marry that daughter and be able to build his family with that woman. So the man had to choose whether or not this woman was somebody who would be suited to be his wife and a mother. And the feminist, what she wanted to do was just be able to have casual sexual relations with any man that she chose, and have casual relationships with any man that she chose without the institution of marriage. So that's where a lot of women wanted to go outside and choose alternative relationships outside of marriage, such as living together. And she wanted to choose how she got involved with these men, and she wanted to choose the terms that she got involved with these men. Unfortunately, this had a major negative impact on society, as your feminists went out here and chose the men at the bottom of society. This started the complete decline of America. And it started the decline of America because as we had the feminists going out here demonizing fathers and removing fathers from the home. This is what led to the complete decline of America, because without the father controlling the vetting process, many of these daughters went out here and got involved with these men at the bottom of society. And as they got involved with these men at the bottom of society, many of these men went out here and they just went out here and had casual sexual relationships with these women, and then they left these women out here, and this did a lot of mental and emotional damage to America's women. Because as America's women went out here and had these sexual relationships with these men, what happened was these women wound up being emotionally hurt, because many of these women, listening to the charms and the lines that these men said and the lies that they told about wanting to be with these women, wanting to build with these women, and wanting to have a life with these women believed the lies that these cads, womanizers, whoremongers, and fortune hunters told them, and these men wound up just using these women for sex. And then after they wound up getting the sex that they wanted, they wound up leaving most of America's women. And after they left America's women, they left America's women emotionally hurt. And once these women wound up getting emotionally hurt, this is what changed their whole perception of men. So instead of seeing men as a partner that they would love and be somebody that they would care for, because the man cared for them the same way he would care for himself, they instead saw men as a user who just wanted to abuse women. But they saw men as somebody who wanted to abuse women because they themselves had been abused by this cad, this womanizer, or this whoremonger in their first relationship. So their first relationship practically scarred these women, and they also wound up getting spiritual scars as well, because when they laid down with these men, the two of them became one. And when the two of them became one spiritually, he put his DNA inside of her, and he put his spirit inside of her. And putting that DNA and that spirit inside of her, this is what led to this woman winding up being in a place where she could not connect with another man to become his wife. So once these women had these casual sexual relationships with these men, this is what led to them not being able to be at a place of spiritual peace inside of themselves. And this is why many women wound up becoming deeply frustrated, deeply troubled, and wondering why they could not go out here and connect with another man when they had relationships, or others becoming frustrated as they were having more and more sexual relationships in an effort to try to find out why they could not go out here and be at peace with themselves. Because the Most High made sex where the man and his wife become one, and that is how a marriage is formed. The marriage is consummated when the two have sexual relations, and when those two have sexual relations under God, they are at peace with themselves. But when you have a woman out here having casual sexual relations, what that does is it messes with her spirit, and it leads to her spirit not being at peace. And that's what happened to many American women as they were a part of the sexual revolution. They were trying to go out here and have an alternative to marriage, but then what happened was their spirits wound up messed up. A lot of these women wound up angry and bitter, and they wound up learning how to hate men. But the problem was that you followed a group of wicked women who wanted to go out here and be able to have sex with just about anyone, but there was a consequence for having sex with just about anyone. And that was that you would not be able to connect with a man and pair bond like you should, like a woman wants to do in a marriage, because you're already connected to another man, but that man is just completely messed up. Now, in addition to messing up a woman's whole mindset and spirit, this whole sexual revolution also messed up America's men. And it messed up America's men because instead of the man working towards becoming a quality man who wants to be a husband, it started steering America's men down the road to becoming whoremongers. So instead of America's men working to become husbands, we had men looking to become womanizers, cads, and players. And the reason why they wanted to become these womanizers, cads, whoremongers, and players was because they saw the woman choosing these men first, and because they saw these women choosing that man first, they wanted to be pushed to the front of the line as related to being able to find a partner, and because they wanted to be chosen first as related to becoming a partner. This is why your men stopped wanting to be responsible husbands and were responsible fathers, and did not see marriage as something that a man needed to do. No, he just could go out here, have as many women as he wanted, and he did not have to support any of the families that he was creating. And this also further led to the damage between the relations between men and women. So this sexual revolution did a lot of damage, but the greatest damage it did was to America's children, because a lot of children wound up being born out of wedlock from these women getting involved with these cads, womanizers, and whoremongers, because some women, what they wanted to do was create a covert contract between themselves and this man by offering their bodies to this man sexually, and they thought that if they offered their bodies to this man sexually, he would want to commit to a relationship. But a lot of these men didn't want to commit to a relationship, because all he wanted to do was get her to take down the floral print panties, and he'd be able to go and get his taste of the atomic waste. So that's what he wanted back in the 60s and the 70s. And when that didn't work and he just got the draws and was on his way, what he wanted to do was, what she wanted to do after that to try to secure the relationship, was try to get pregnant, hoping that this man would commit to them. But this man didn't want to commit to this woman, because he only wanted to be able to just get this sex from this woman. And after he got sex from this woman and got to use her body, he was on his way looking for the next person. So instead of there being healthy interdependent relationships between men and women, we got codependent relationships between men and women, where the woman tried to force the man to try to have a relationship with her through the court system, by trying to make him pay child support, or trying to make him go visit and see his children. But this man was never father material in the first place, and this woman would have known this had she understood why her father was supposed to be part of the vetting process. Because if the father were there as related to the courtship process, many of these cads, womanizers, whoremongers, and other assorted low-seed men would not even be part of the discussion, because the father would be able to screen these men and he would deny them access to his daughter. Now, there would be girls out there who would get involved with those men, but those men, the father would not bless that relationship. And what would happen is that that girl would be on her own, and she would have to deal with the social shame of being out here by herself, having sex outside of marriage, and most people would shun her and want nothing to do with her. So there was the whole thing is that because of the sexual revolution, there was no more social shame on sex, and there was no father there to go out here and protect his daughter. So the sexual revolution, yes, more people were out here having casual sexual relations, but those casual sexual relations did damage to society, because it led to the culture of sexual promiscuity. It led to the culture of whoremongers, males. It led to the creation of an entire culture as related to illegitimate children, and it led to the rise of the welfare state and the establishment of the single mother household as a social norm. All of these things can be connected to the sexual revolution, and the sexual revolution was one of the things that led to the decline of America. Because in order for a country to be strong, all of the country has to have strong families, because it's strong families that keep a country functioning. Because when you have strong families, it says something about the women's moral position. Because when you have strong families, that sets a direction for a country. When you have women who are out here and they have a high moral position, they create a standard for society, and that standard is something that men go out here and follow, because they are taught this by their mothers, that not to get involved with women from who are low tier in society, because those women cannot teach your children a culture that values anything. So that's all of these things connect with each other. But because we had one generation of women, the baby boomers, who did not appreciate what their parents had, this is what led to the sexual revolution. And that sexual revolution had an impact on society, because it led to the decline of America. And it's one of the reasons why we currently have a man crisis in this country, and it's also why we have a woman crisis in this country, because these days, as a result of the sexual revolution now turning into a revolution into sexual deviancy, many women don't know how to be women, and that's why we have a woman crisis going on right now. And that woman crisis is leading to many women winding up becoming lost in a completely declining society. Now, I hope this answers the question for the viewer who requested this video. And if you want to request a video, you can donate to my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to learn more about the decline of society as related to women, you can pick up my upcoming book, The Woman Crisis, later this fall in 2022. And you can further learn more about the impact of the sexual revolution in my other books, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single and The Man Crisis. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. If you think you've seen scares, get ready for the horror of the Haida woman.